I moved to El Paso when I was 8 years old, along with my single mother. My two oldest brothers were living here at the time, and I've been in El Paso ever since. I went to elementary, middle school, high school, and college here.
And do you have any memories of when you're 8 years old when you're coming over?
Of course, I still have vague memories of Venezuela. I do remember the political instability at the time. Of course, that political instability has increased ever since 2001 when I first moved here. I remember first making that original move and attending school with my classmates. I didn't know English, but it only took about a year for me to become acquainted to the values of this community and adopt them as my own. So when I was 8 years old, I was living in Caracas in Venezuela. My two oldest brothers were both living in El Paso. One was, I believe, attending school. The other one was attending a technical school to become a truck driver. I lived in Venezuela with my mom and my little sister. Unfortunately, my little sister passed away because of an infection in her lungs, which could have been treated better if we were in the United States. After that, my mom became very depressed and decided that she wanted to be with all of her kids in one place versus having to migrate back and forth. And so we had originally come for a 6-month trip that soon became, later 17 years. My mom, we came here by a plane on a tourist visa, and shortly after coming to the United States, my mom petitioned for her U.S. green card. Through my oldest brother, Sebastian, who is a citizen now. Growing up, I remember always having to attend immigration attorneys or having to go to different USCIS offices, not really understanding why, but knowing that it was important for us to do so in order to stay. I know that my mom attempted in many occasions to receive or acquire the correct paperwork. She was successful at it. She soon became a green card holder a few years after we moved here. Unfortunately, my paperwork was a little bit more complicated. We also were essentially given wrongful information by immigration attorneys locally, which happens all the time. And it's a process that now probably has costed us more than $20,000, $30,000. And I have yet to receive my green card. I entered the United States with a tourist visa. We had no intention of staying in the United States. It just sort of happened, predominantly because of the political instability in Venezuela rising. The first 6 months while we were in El Paso, we saw a lot of crazy things happen in Venezuela. And so the process was a very difficult one. The decision was a very difficult decision because we had our entire life in Venezuela. My mom was an attorney there. So she essentially went from being a professional in her community, having even at one point held elected office in Venezuela, to come here and be, clean rooms, clean bathrooms, serve as waitress in several restaurants. She later then became a paraprofessional with the EPISD school district. My mom she learned English the best that she could. Of course, her English wasn't perfect, but I think that that doesn't constitute how American her heart was. When I was little, when I first moved here, the only two things I can say were, where is the bathroom? And I do not understand. And so shortly after, though, I remember being in the bilingual program for only a year. When I entered 4th grade, I was already in a regular program, excelling in even the standardized tests administered by Texas.
So you said your mom is a green card holder now?
She was. She passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so she hadn't passed away. She could have gotten...
Right. So
she would have been able to get you.
Right. So that was exactly what we were undergoing. She was in the process right before she was eligible to become a U.S. citizen. She actually became very ill, and so we decided, because of lack of access to health insurance, that the best option for her was to move back to her home country, Venezuela, where she would be attended by other family members. Unfortunately, what that meant would mean that I was no longer available to apply through her. I did apply on one occasion in 2011 for a green card and showed up to the USCIS officer and was denied. Then I received a letter in the mail about 30 days after saying that I had only a month to leave the country. This was in the eve of my high school graduation. And so it didn't matter how many college acceptance letters I had with me at that interview. It didn't matter that I had over $100,000 in scholarships from different universities across the country. What mattered at that point was the fact that that dream was no longer attainable. And so I had to fight my right to stay in this country. I had to fight in the courts specifically. And luckily in 2012, President Obama came out with or released the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, which allowed me to continue my education here in the United States and provided me with protection from deportation. I think that President Obama's actions were in response to Congress's inaction. If Congress would have taken the correct measures to address the issue back then in 2012 or even before that, then we wouldn't have the problem at hand. And so now, more than ever, it is imperative that Congress pass a resolution or pass legislation that provides us with that pathway to citizenship. And not only that, but that really considers a piece of legislation that is clean and that won't jeopardize our communities in the border, that won't jeopardize our families, and that understands that there are 11 million undocumented immigrants in this country that provide tremendous benefits to our communities and our economy. Well, there's a lot of uncertainty. I'm not scared, but I am uncertain. And what I mean by that is that although I know that I have come out of the shadows because of the DACA program, I am empowered by a community of other young leaders who have helped me share my story and have provided protections of me in doing so and a lot of support along the way. I still don't know what my life can look like in a year. My current work permit expires in February of 2019, and that's detrimental. So for example, just a few weeks ago, I accepted a position to work in Austin with a nonprofit organization under the leadership of somebody who I think is one of the leading voices in this country. And although I have accepted the opportunity, I don't know if I can be working there for longer than a year. And so it's really devastating for all of us that we can't make these plans. That's why in conjunction and in partnership with a lot of different organizations locally, Dreamers Like Me have been making a lot of noise, and we've been pushing for Congressman Hurd, for example, to take action and to take leadership on this issue and co-sponsor legislation such as the DREAM Act that provides us with a pathway to citizenship and most importantly that protection from deportation. I think Trump is a man who began his bid for presidency referring to Mexican men as rapists. He began his presidency by imposing an unconstitutional travel ban and has time and time again proven that he is no friend of immigrants and that every immigrant, documented or not, is under attack in this administration. And so it's very worrisome. But what I think that'll do, it will be, if anything, a call to action for so many people across this country to take action and to come out and vote in the next midterm elections and to, make their voices heard and hold him and his party accountable for the actions that they're taking against immigrants. Immigrants like me are your friends, we're your neighbors, we're your family members. We are not the enemy. In fact, we are thriving members of this community in this country, and we deserve that pathway to citizenship. Because there are so many people now who have come out of the shadows, who are undocumented, especially people like us, the Dreamers, who have been given a voice through the DACA program. We are making our voices heard. Just today, I was watching some live feeds of some Dreamers in Washington, D.C. I know that next week there's going to be a huge call to action from a lot of the different southern states who will be traveling to Washington, D.C. to demand that Congress take an action. And so although there's a lot of things to be worried about as the end of the year approaches, there's a lot of new things to be hopeful for the years to come. And the saddest part is that so many in Congress right now are treating our dreams as bargaining tools, as bargaining chips for border militarization, for stricter immigration policies that we know time and time again will just end up in the separation of more families. And we know that they want to use our dreams as a form of getting a senseless wall, a wall that we do not need. El Paso ranks typically one of the top 3 safest cities in this country because we welcome immigrants. So there is no reason why we shouldn't pass a clean version of the DREAM Act that protects me and 3.5 million other Americans.